each one. So let's keep them going, guys. You hear a topic that Derek might bring up, absolutely type it in. And for the rest of the audience, kind of keep an eye on the Q&As because you can see it and it might help you either enhance another question or get your question answered there and then. Remember, I'm recording these questions. I'm recording this as we speak, and Derek's going to give me his hour-long slide deck. I'm going to put everything together and get everybody who registered an email. That means even if you had a tech that couldn't sit here with us right now but did register, I'll make sure I fly that email off to them. All right, guys, I think it's time to get to work. We are recording. One of my favorite people in the whole entire industry, Derek Webb. Take it away, my man. Let's go.
Thanks, Gary. I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. It's good to be back. I think this morning I saw a good handful of names that I recognized in the chat and the attendee list. So if you recognize me, great. If not, hey, no big deal. But we're here to talk about the new Luma X20 family of products, and I think the key there is family, because that's what we've done is we've relaunched the entire ecosystem of Luma, and for us to get to a point where we're at today, it did require that a full relaunch of the ecosystem. We originally launched the Luma brand, if you will, 2015, 2016 was the original launch of Luma as the brand. Before that, obviously, some of you guys have been around for a while. Remember the Wirepath brand. The notion has stayed the same. We've learned a ton over the years, and that's kind of the culmination of where we're at. You can almost say, in terms of starting over with Luma X20, it's putting everything we've learned into the platform and into this ecosystem to create this new family of surveillance products is the ultimate idea. So before we get into like the nuts and bolts, just want to do a little quick intro. I'm not going to give you guys the full spiel on my history, but I'm Derek Webb. I'm the product manager for the title says VSAS, Clear Vision, and Intrusion. Really, I'm responsible for a lot of the software and user experiences for our surveillance products and some of our intrusion products as well. I also own the Clear Vision product line of cameras and recorders and that app as well. So I kind of got a little bit of the software side. Marlon, who is on the webinar with me today as well. Marlon is our product manager for really all of our surveillance hardware. And so Luma X20 is more his baby than it is mine. He built this thing from the ground up with our product director, Forrest, about 18 months ago, probably 20 months ago now is when we first started this project. And so I have the background of the, user experiences, oversee things like that. But Marlon brought this thing from the very beginning on the hardware side. And so he's here going to be answering questions all over the place for you guys and, being in the chat with everyone. So kind of that point, please feel free to send those questions in. It's going to help us drive the conversation. I love having these questions. But yeah, that's kind of how we're going to get started here. I already see some good questions coming in that we'll get to as we go through things over time. But let's get started in the beginning here. The very first thing that we want to kind of just talk about is what gets you in the door. What is the beginning of Luma X20? And so there's two big pieces, if you will, of the Luma X20 family portion, which is first and foremost is the and I wasn't sharing my screen. No one yelled at me yet. I'm surprised that no one yelled at me about that. The first part that's important is you didn't miss too much, so don't worry. The first part that's important about this kind of this new product family is the hardware, because we needed all new hardware to bring this new software platform to kind of to all of your projects. And so the hardware was step one. And hardware in the surveillance industry, it's not what it used to be. It's fairly easy to get good hardware nowadays. The problem we had in the past with our previous product lineup, Luma X10, is compared to where the competition was, we had a somewhat inferior product on the Luma X10 lineup of cameras and NVRs. They worked well in their space, but if you really started comparing it to products that were similar priced or even lower priced, we were behind. And so step one was getting all of our hardware caught up, which allowed us to open up to the software side of things. But some of the highlights that I wanted to point to in this section are things like having NDAA compliant cameras and NVRs. It's a simple feature, but one that people are going to, people are looking for. People are asking for that NDAA compliant type solution. When you need that, we are also now ONVIF conformant across the board with all of our cameras and NVRs. So as you're deploying these things into hybrid systems, you want to bring in someone else's cameras into our NVR. You want to bring our cameras into someone else's NVR or VMS platform. We are ONVIF conformant. You will find us on the ONVIF portal. So that's definitely helpful to have. Those are simple things for us to get out the door. A couple of other ones though that I kind of like to point out here with X20 is first is AI. So all of our cameras have built-in edge AI, starting at our 2 megapixel series, going all the way up to our 8 megapixel series. We have built-in AI across the board. And so that allows you to get human, vehicle, and non-motor vehicle detections on every single camera. That's an important feature to, again, make sure that when you're in the buying process, you don't have to really focus on, well, I don't want to do standard motion detection. I want to do AI. Do I have to go buy a more expensive camera? But, we have this, this feature on all the cameras across the lineup there. So that just makes the buying process a little bit easier on all of those cameras. And so again, that is built into the cameras themselves. As I said, 2 megapixel up to 8 megapixel. Those are 4K IP cameras across the board there. And then I think the other kind of feature that is important to understand from a differentiator when you're in the buying process are those nighttime options with the product. So when I say nighttime options, starlight versus full color versus standard IR. So our 2 megapixel series and our 4 megapixel series, and I'll go through some of the kind of nomenclature, if you will, over the SKU names, but our 2 megapixel and 4 megapixel, those cameras are the ones that support your starlight feature when it comes to nighttime performance. Starlight is a feature that when it was released 5 years ago, it was a great solution at that time. Starlight has kind of withered away in the world of surveillance. It's still important. The problem is that a lot of vendors and have tried to make it available in too many SKUs. Starlight works really well in low resolution cameras because of the nature of the actual hardware that enables it. So our 2 megapixel and 4 megapixel series cameras support Starlight and standard IR together because that's where they work best. As you get to higher resolution cameras, Starlight falters. Doesn't matter the camera. That's just the nature of Starlight as a feature. And it's not really, you can say it's a feature. It's just the sensor allows more light in, and then the software of the sensor kind of tries to brighten that image as well. So Starlight's available in the lower end models in the Luma X20 lineup. As you move to our 5 megapixel series cameras, we have the full color at night option that gives you the white LED that you'll see. I'll point out here on the camera. That gives you the white LEDs that provide the necessary ambient light to keep that camera in full color 24/7. That white LED can be turned off. It can be set on a schedule, so it turns on at certain times of night. It can be automated when you are using it in conjunction with a control system. But there is not built-in automation for the feature on the camera. But with a control system, there is automation control over that LED. So you kind of have a lot of flexibility on how you want to use that. Some people might say the LED is distracting or impactful, and they don't like it. So we have standard IR options on this unit as well. So the 5 megapixel comes in full color at night options or just standard IR. The 820 series, that's our 8 megapixel cameras, are standard IR right now with full color at night options on that unit on the horizon. There's a ton of other kind of small features here and there that are important, but I don't want to spend all the time just reading you guys a feature list. That's an important thing to just, you guys can read that on your own time. I don't want to go through the entire feature list there. The other piece of hardware, though, that is important to point out are the NVRs. So the NVRs themselves, we simplified the process there as well. We have two NVRs, a 120 series and a 220 series. I'll talk about that nomenclature here in a second, but the only difference between the two is the hard drive capacity support between the NVRs. There is no longer the concept of a 310 series NVR and a 510 series NVR with differing feature sets. They essentially think of the new 120 series and 220 series as direct replacements for the previous 510 series NVR. The 310 series NVR that you may have purchased before, that really, what replaces that is more in the ClariVision lineup of products, which are not as deep of an integratable solution. They have some integration like the 310 series NVR had before, but for the deep integration into your control systems, that's where X20 comes into play, and we'll continue to kind of grow with that experience. So just to kind of recap some of those features and what that means, and I see a couple of good questions here. To kind of recap, the X20 kind of naming rule just helps kind of remember and helps you understand how you're buying things. Obviously, the first part of the SKU name, LUM, is the brand. The second part of the SKU name, the numbers that you see here, the first number is going to be your resolution of that camera, a lot easier. 220 series, 2 megapixel, 424, 520, 820, up to the 8 megapixel, keeping it a little bit easier there. The second part of that number is going to be the family, X20 family. IP camera is the third section of the SKU name. We will have a new lineup of analog cameras later this year. And then the fourth part of the SKU name is the most important, right? Those are all the specifics. The first being the housing type, turret, dome, or bullet. The second letter being the lens type. If that camera is a full color camera, it will be C in this section. If it's not full color, it'll just be removed from the SKU name. And then the last letter is going to be the housing color, white or black. We have white or black options in every single series across the board there as well. I saw a great question come in, from my friend Damien. It's a little bit, it's not too late for you, Damien, right now. But so cross compatibility between the X10 series products and the X20 series products. What I would say is that they are cross compatible, but it's important to understand what features you may or may not lose between the two. Most importantly, if you have an X20 NVR with X10 cameras, so you're upgrading an X10 system to X20, you will essentially maintain the feature set that your X10 cameras had. You will gain some features like the new Luma View app, push notifications over the X10 events, but you will not enhance the AI of those cameras. So you're not going to get AI. The AI lives on the cameras themselves, but they completely work. I'll show you guys some examples of that later. X10 cameras into X20 NVRs. And then the other direction, if you have X20 cameras on an X10 NVR, also fully compatible, but the X10 NVR will not be able to capture the advanced AI of the X20 cameras. That's a new level of ONVIF and just feature sets that the X10 NVRs aren't capable of capturing, but they are capable of capturing things like standard motion, obviously 24/7 recording, things like that. And that would all live in the legacy app as well. So fully cross-compatible. There are some features that you would lose depending on which direction you go, or you could actually gain features as you're upgrading between the two. Okay, I think there are I see a good some good feedback from Mr. Anonymous Attendee. Maybe we'll hire you to the marketing team. That's some good feedback on our SKU names. The next kind of part is once you move on past hardware. Hardware is important. Hardware is kind of what got us into the door, is the most important piece there. But really where X20 will shine today and continue to shine as a platform is going to be on the software side, is getting us to a level where we can start to make software changes, software update, but more importantly, give you software right now that that allows you guys to be more efficient on your projects. And I think the software that we're talking about is twofold, because surveillance is a unique product where, yes, the camera you're putting up on that side of the house, the client may not ask or even care what kind of camera it is. Some of them might ask because they watch the news and they care about, is it X brand, because they watched the news recently. But more importantly, what they are going to care about though is the app you're putting in their hands. And so we kind of did a full revamp on the software side for both pieces. The software that you use as the partner, it's really important. There is value there. You guys have to have a powerful and efficient, experience for setting up systems. And then there is the software that the client uses, that the client interacts with on a daily basis. And that could be the new Luma View app, which we'll talk about, or it could be their control system experience, which we'll talk a little bit about the Control 4 experience at the end. So I'm going to kind of talk about each of these components, hop in and out of some little live demos here to show you guys how it functions and how it works. But the new setup experience for Luma X20 starts in the cloud. Oversee is the backbone for the setup of Luma X20. Does it work with the web UI like the old school way of doing things? Sure. If you want to go through web UI of the Luma X20 setup, it can. It still works, and there's still going to be some settings that you're going to probably need to go in there to tweak and maybe change, maybe. But what we're trying to do is give you as much as possible inside of Oversee so that you have the ease of setup in Oversee. You can pull it up on any device. You don't have to worry about, do I have the right computer with the right plugin? You don't have to worry about, these little small things here and there. We want to make sure that Oversee gives you everything you need to deploy a system. And so the first thing, obviously, you kind of see some of the highlights here: live video, AI setup. I'll go through this in a demo perspective. But the very first thing that Oversee is accomplishing for you is what the surveillance industry has coined as activation. Some of you guys have probably experienced that word. Some people I know, when they hear that word activation when it comes to surveillance, they might cringe, tense up a little bit because it's been a long and painful process over the years. And so if you don't know what activation is, it's that pretty much every surveillance product today comes out of the box with essentially no password set. They may have a default password that's pre-assigned, that's supposed to be random, but really most of them are supposed to come out of the box with no password set. Luma X20 is the same. There is no password set really out of the box. And you, as the installer, have to go through the activation process. You're either plugging cameras into the back of an NVR, setting up the NVR will then activate the cameras. You are either logging into each camera one by one and activating the cameras manually one by one, or you're opening up some surveillance tool, scanning those cameras in, checking a box, and then activating them all. The point is, that's three very separate ways to do it that all kind of create confusion and add time to your install. And so the activation process is now done for you in Oversee. So when you are adding your cameras to Oversee, either through a manual add, which is what you'll do for cameras plugged into the Luma X20 NVR, or via an Oversee scan, which is what you'll do for cameras that are on their own PoE switch separate. The second they hit Oversee and you access that camera, the activation process is occurring. We are setting the default password in the device for you, and we are also creating additional user accounts that you can use for other purposes in your projects. We'll go through those different user accounts soon. The most important thing for you as the installer, though, is specifically that you have access right away to continue doing setup. You don't have to log into the web UI and set a password. That once Oversee gets access to the system, some of you, depending on when you're buying them, the initial shipment did require a firmware update. So you may see a firmware update notification on some products, but a lot here moving forward very soon. You won't have to worry about firmware updates out of the box. It'll be ready to go the second it hits Oversee. So once it hits oversee, there's no movement in my camera right now to show you, oh, there goes the flag. It's live video in the cloud right now. So you have access to live video in the cloud and you can begin setup, whether it's your phone, your tablet, or your web browser that you want to get that access on. You can come through and you can start creating your AI zones, whether those AI zones are, you want to set up your line crossing. I've selected line crossing on this camera. I can easily draw a line. You see how responsive that is. That's responsive, whether it's with your mouse, it's your finger on a phone or a tablet, it's all there. And you can tweak that line. You can have up to 4 different lines. This is the AI event. You can select the direction you want for that line. You can choose schedules. What type of AI event would you like to have access to that system? Triggering SD card, recording, things like that. Basically, you can set up the entire AI event right here in Oversee. We do have some extra settings, quite a few, as you move into the configure tab of the camera, time zone settings, obviously IP settings, all of the image settings, which are pretty valuable, especially if you're troubleshooting some nighttime image quality issues. You'll see how responsive these settings are right here from Oversee. And this is changing the setting on the camera. I'm not just like, photoshopping these things in. That's changing the setting on the camera. You can rotate the image if I install the camera in a weird spot. And then if I don't like all the settings that I just changed, I can restore default. This is a full color at night camera. So I do have my white LED, the white light available for setting control as well. I can flip it to manual where I can set a specific time when I want. I can also set the strength of that LED when it is being turned on. Again, you can set the time there below. So depending on the camera, our 820 series has a few other kind of settings when you get to IR versus the white LED settings that are available on this 520 series. But you're going to have access to the image settings that you need right here in Oversee as well. I think the last section that I want to highlight here in the camera settings section is the camera credentials page. Camera credentials is your access into the system. So when we go through the activation process, we're creating these accounts on the devices for you. So the devices are essentially, these are hardware level logins. They are relevant to you as the installer. The end user has their own set of credentials that they can manage and they can control. Their management of their credentials never will impact your access to the system. I think that's the important thing we like to kind of talk about here, is that you have your own set of access and management with Oversee, and it's meant for you as the partner to manage the system. The customer has their level of access to be the end customer. And you can still manage and support your customer through and through, but these are your logins to the system that we'll keep track of for you right here in Oversee. And they're following all of the strong password, settings that are out there and whatnot in the ecosystems, but these are set at the location level. So every X20 device at this customer location will receive these same credentials across the board. So support admin is your login to the web UI as an admin. System Connect is what you would use when you're adding these maybe to another automation platform like Control4. And then OnVIF obviously is what you would use when you're adding this to any type of third-party OnVIF device that needs access to this camera. We're again providing that information for you right here. So there's plenty more settings that are here. I think one thing that I failed to mention on the hardware side is we also support audio across the board now with all of our cameras. What I mean by that is that all of our domes and turrets in every single series have built-in microphones. Every dome, every turret has a built-in microphone. Every camera SKU has a built-in audio input. So that means that your bullet cameras that don't have the built-in mic still have the audio input if you want to add audio into that stream. And then some of the cameras also have an audio output connection. So if you wanted to connect this to some type of audio system to support two-way audio, some of our cameras support that. We have a feature matrix that can take you through some of those features and whatnot later. But that control is also right here in Oversee to turn on and off. The microphones are turned off by default, just to give you that little piece of feedback. So here's the deal. Setting up your cameras, that's great. What about getting them on the NVR? We tried to make that process very easy as well. If those cameras are connected to the PoE switch of the NVR, they will show in this list I'm getting ready to show you, but you still might need to go in and manually add those cameras to oversee with the service tag and MAC address. We are looking to improve that process a little bit. So here's an example of a camera that I have plugged into the PoE switch of my NVR. You'll see it's showing, hey, front yard. It's got the little PoE icon next to it. This is an example of a camera that's working. It's connected, but it's not necessarily in my oversee account yet. So it's there, but oversee doesn't have the access. I would need to go in and add that camera manually. But you can hyperlink directly into the settings of those cameras as they're added in when they have that kind of blue highlight next to them. But what I want to show you guys is how easy it is to add cameras, in and out of your system. So I'm going to just go ahead and I am going to delete or unassign this camera from my system right here. It'll take about 10 seconds to unassign this camera from my system. It's going to pop up down below in my unassigned camera list. You'll see here. And it says, hey, this camera is, unassigned. So if you have cameras that are plugged into the X20 NVR, they're all going to show up in the linked cameras section. If these are on a separate PoE switch, if they are third-party cameras that we are scanning in via OnVIF, they're going to show up in the unassigned cameras section. If it's an X20 camera, we, meaning oversee, know everything about that camera. Everything. It's ours, right? It's our camera. We know it all. And so all you have to do when you want to add those other cameras is check the box and click assign. Because we know everything, we're going to go in and change or set all the password information for that camera because we know it in the NVR. It'll probably take about, again, 10 seconds to hop up in there to the top section. It may take another 10, 15 seconds total to properly connect to that camera as well. It's as quick as that. I'll refresh the page here to see if that gives it enough time to pop in and show green as connected. Well, that's an X20 camera. It's as simple. If it's on a separate PoE switch, all you're doing is you're checking the box and you'll see there it is, added and online. The other example I wanted to show you guys, I'm going to disconnect this 310 series PTZ from my system. This is an X10 PTZ. It's going to, I'm adding it back and forth with OnVIF. We also have the Luma X10 protocol that will take advantage of it. We also have the Hikvision protocol built into the NVR that will also help with adding these. But it's going to grab this camera via an OnVIF scan. The only difference that I will do when I add this camera in is rather than just clicking add to NVR, I'm going to select the option to add to NVR with credentials. I'm going to put in the username and password for this camera. With the Luma X10 cameras, the OnVIF login is shared with the admin login of the camera. So there should only be one login you have to worry about. I'm going to go ahead and assign that camera. Same thing. It'll take probably 10 to 20 seconds total to add to the NVR and properly connect. So I've seen a few questions coming in. One that is right here in front of me. Can Control 4 chime video doorbells work with X20 NVRs and be claimed the same way? Absolutely. So you'll see the one right here that's labeled Control 4. That is my chime video doorbell. You would add that camera the exact same way that we just added that 310 PTZ. You would check it in the list below, put in the username and password that you set when you set that camera up in the driver, and you would assign it. And you're ready to rock and roll. And that will give you motion events from the chime video doorbell. Obviously 24/7 also gives you push notifications and recording in the Luma View app as well. So that makes life really simple when you talk about some of the other products we have in the ecosystem. That also applies to DS2. DS2 also supports OnVIF, and so it can easily add into the ecosystem as well. Okay. So there is much more to the oversee experience, but what I want to make sure from a timing perspective that we talk about kind of that next arm of the software component for X20, which oversees you, the partner. It's what's enhancing your experience. Sometimes it's a little bit harder to sell what makes your life easier to the end customer. Some of you guys have gotten really good at saying, hey, I install this because it helps me help you. Sometimes it's not enough for the end customer. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to pay extra just to make your life easier. I wish we could change that mentality across the board, but that's how it is. But what you can sell, what you can put in front of the end customer is the new Luma View app. The new Luma View app is that end user facing solution for the clients to manage their systems. And the whole goal of this app is to kind of bridge the DIY like features that people are, clamoring for out there today, and the kind of high end surveillance features and mush them together. Create this solution that's kind of a hybrid of the DIY type stuff and the professional surveillance stuff is out there that people, they want both. So the idea is this thing was designed for homeowners, commercial owners, security guards, you name it. Again, I'll go in and give some more demos of this app here in a second. Push notifications are native in the app now. That's a simple feature that we didn't have before, and now we do. And those push notifications are AI based. So it's going to be accurate when you're using the X20 cameras. US based servers with our point-to-point connections. I think a feature I'll show you guys in a second that gets taken for granted is a 16 channel synchronized playback. So you can play up to 16 channels in playback mode at the exact same time. And you can hop in and out of those channels, go from single camera view to back to grid view. And the timeline essentially stays with you. That's a powerful, professional type surveillance solution that we made very easy to use. And I'll show you guys that here in a second. And then probably the most important one is this AI filtered event search. These are some of those things that the DIY, companies out there have made seem just all too easy. Hey, I just want to see all the people that came into my system. And we can do that now. We can allow the customer, when they're using X20 cameras with the X20 NVR, to show you just the people that came into the system and nothing else. And so that's the value that we're trying to prove and give you when you're selling this to the end user. So enough with me talking about it here on a slide. Let's talk about giving them access. So the way that you give access to Luma View to your clients is there is a settings tab that is new since we launched Luma X20 in Oversee now for that location. And you're going to invite your customer to Oversee, Connect, and the Luma View app. They're going to receive an email that takes them through the process of creating their account and creating their own password. In the past, this is not as guided as well. We're going to help guide the customer through this. So it shouldn't be this thing where you're having to do all of the setup for them. It's going to guide the customer through that process. And once they have set up their accounts, it will direct them to download the Luma View app, and they will see a screen like this. Let me pull it up really quick when they open it for the first time. So they're going to see a screen like this where those credentials they just created, they're going to log in with. And when they log in, they will see probably a single camera view that looks something like this right away. They can easily, as you see right here, the numbers will allow them to jump around to different cameras within their system. They can create different views. Here's one that I wanted to show. There's my Chime video doorbell right there in my Luma View app here. But the views, I like to point that out because this is one of those customization things that people want to ask about, is this little icon here in the bottom in the middle. The views, they can, select any view they want. And the views are persistent. That's a simple thing. Like, it's one of those things that we've taken for granted, but the views are persistent. This camera is offline, so I'm going to pick a different one. So this view now is persistent across my system. If I were to go and look at a different view, I've got this nice fun view, it's persistent. The view stays the same no matter, what view I'm on. On top of that, the client can also, if you see it in the bottom right, this little icon, they can create favorite views. I click the add favorite option. So they can create views that are favorites, and they can save those favorites, and they can set the app, the default view, to be a certain favorite. So every time the customer opens the app, no matter what they were doing before, they can create a favorite. They want it to open to that every time. By default, the app will open up to the last viewed set of channels. So whatever the view was on before, that's what's going to open back up to. And if they want to change that, those settings are in the app for them to go in and make those changes. And it's giving them that flexibility, that customization that they need. That's what I saved your favorite. You saw the nice little heart icon there. A couple of other features I'd like to highlight here. I haven't had any events come through yet for push notifications. So I am going to select in the top left the menu icon that you see here. And I'm going to click on my notifications list. So the notifications list are all the previous push notifications that have come through my system. Obviously, if these were live, I would be getting a notification on my phone. The app would show up. And so I'm going to grab one that's a human alert. That's my mail lady. You see how quickly that accessed that notification. It has a little snapshot of the target that triggered the AI event. I'm going to find another camera, though. This one's better. There she is coming through. And what I like to really point out here, you can miss it if I don't take the time to show you, is this is the event. I am accessing this through the point-to-point connection. This is not a local IP connection. This is through the cloud. I'm going to hit the little play button here that you see. The play icon is going to take me into playback of this event right away. What I like to kind of point out is the speed at which it took me into playback. And so what you're seeing is my AI rule is about right here on my driveway. So there's a little bit of pre-record time that happened. Looks like she forgot something. And so that pre-record time grabbed her as she was getting out of her mail truck over there. It triggered right around here. It probably, there's another event later that it might trigger as she comes back through. But the point is how fast you got into that event. Think about client says something that they didn't like. They want to capture that event. They can go and capture that event in a couple of ways. And while they're watching the event, they can take snapshots of the event right here in the top right. You'll see that right here. Or they can zoom in. I'm pinching to zoom on that scrub bar. You can see how quickly it's kind of updating there. And on the live view, you see that little scissor icon. They can hit that scissor icon and it will take them into the archive mode. If anyone is ever archived in their ecosystem before, it can be a pain. This is going to be very similar to iOS, and the experience is the same on Android as well. So they can drag this bar, and you'll see the colors here. The yellow is the AI event. Blue is 24/7 recording. And so I could drag this to be the entire AI event. It's 59 seconds. I can hit start download. So I grabbed the entire AI event. You'll see it downloading in the background. It's pretty quick, actually, in how it is running. And so I'm going to go back now that event is finished. The actual videos are being stored in reserved memory in the app. So we're not having to access your file manager all the time. And so in the app itself, there is a file section back in that main menu where those events are being stored. The one below is what I recorded this morning. Here's the one that we just did together. You can play it back in the app in full res. There is audio on this event as well. So you guys aren't hearing it, but there is audio here. But most importantly is, well, I've got the event. How do I give it to somebody? You'll see this share icon here in the bottom left. It's as simple as hitting share. And it uses the standard sharing functionality of your phone or your tablet. So if I want to pop that into an iMessage, if I want to upload it to Twitter, as you can see here in my example, pop it into an email, share it with Microsoft Teams, save it to my camera roll, whatever it may be, it's all ready to rock and roll right here from the system. It's a standard MP4. There is no special tool that's needed to play back the footage. So it's going to make your life pretty easy as you are going through that process. So to give you I saw a good question come through. Which cameras am I showing here? The one that you see on the screen right now, this is the 520 series full color. I wonder if I can get this thing to go into landscape. I can't. I was trying to put it in landscape, but you can see the image quality on this. Not bad. Going through and moving it around the, there we go. So pretty good image quality on this guy from a 520. It's a 5 megapixel. We've got the 8 megapixel as well. And you probably noticed that in some of my live views that it was even going through and adjusting resolution automatically. The app is by default going to be dynamic in its resolution. You can kind of see the quality of that 8 megapixel camera as it zooms in on certain parts of my, yes, I have 3 grills. They are all for 3 very separate purposes. I'm sure people are wanting to make comments about that. But yeah, so that's an 820 series. The previous one was a 520 series. The last feature I want to point to is the search by event feature that we were talking about before, filtering that event and seeing what you need. So in the bottom right-hand corner right here, you'll see this little menu icon again, and there is a search by event feature right there. And you can filter everything on your NVR based off the AI. So let's say I want to go and look for all the humans. You can set a specific time frame. By default, it's going to select the 24 hours of the day you are currently on. So 24 hours of today. I have only been, in today here on the East Coast for 12 hours and 44 minutes. So that's how much it's going to give me. I can filter this down to the camera level if I would like. I can go through and change the event type, intrusion versus line crossing. And I can hit start search. It is immediately going to filter every human that has walked across my cameras today. I find myself using this feature quite often, like in the mornings. I'll wake up in the morning, I'll just quickly pop it up. Maybe I swiped away some of the notifications just because, it's just your brain is trained to do that. And so you can easily pop in here, find the notification that you will want, the event that you want, and you can take that directly into playback and go through the same process we were talking about before. I can zoom in on the playback. I can archive the playback. I can take this into a 4-camera view, and that will immediately pull in 4 cameras and sync up the playback. I can pop that into, I'm going to pull it back here so you can see that from the beginning. It will sync up the playback between the 4. I can jump that to a 9-camera grid view, and it will sync up the playback. I don't have 9 cameras to show right now, but I can kind of sync those up right there. If there's no data, because I only have that camera set to record motion or AI on that camera, it may have no data. If I had 16 cameras, I could sync all 16 to playback at the exact same time. And you can see how quickly I'm popping between those different playback views. This is what we talk about when we're kind of bridging the gap, right? We made it easy to get into the playback view. But once you're in the playback view, now you can go through and properly, have that full comprehensive surveillance experience you're looking for. So I think as we're rounding out our discussion here, I'll kind of end with some of the that's my daughter and my wife this morning before she was going to school. I'll end it with some of the discussion around kind of control system integration, maybe answer a few questions that are here. I saw a few that were coming through on the different cameras that are out there that we're using. This is the 520 series on the app. Let's see. I think I can take this thing into landscape view for you. Let's turn that off. There you go. So this should be full resolution on the 520 series. It's still pretty good, but this is full resolution from the app. If you were to pull this video and archive it, it's going to be a little bit higher image quality there. This is the 5 megapixel series camera. I saw someone asking, just getting a better understanding. And I'm just pinching to zoom to get that information as well. So let's see if there are a few questions that are relevant before I hop into this last part. See Zoom. So yeah, as we're getting into this control system kind of experience, we have drivers today. The deepest integration we're going to have, obviously, to start is Control 4 from that perspective. We have navigation drivers, which are light in functionality, but they are there for Elan and Crestron, because we still write those internally. We have a team that still writes those. And then we have sent our API to URC, and we have sent hardware to RTI to start working on them, but it's their timeline in terms of getting those drivers built and ready to go for them. And then from a video streaming standpoint, most of the control systems, from what we're learning, and I would love to hear more from you guys on this, is most of them use OnVIF drivers for camera integration. So I'm pretty sure that's what Savant has done. Crestron has done at the Crestron home level, and just normal, old school Crestron. Same thing with Elan from that perspective. And so from a video streaming perspective, we don't really have any other video drivers, because everyone has told us that they don't use video drivers anymore. They just use standard OnVIF integration. And so we can definitely keep exploring that if that's not the case, but that was what we were told as we were going through this process. And so we didn't really explore that with a lot of the other control systems, because they told us there was no need to. But it's always hard for us to get into the door and have those conversations now that we are a direct competitor with many of them in this space as well. So I'm always open to feedback and to improving upon that. And we're going to keep improving upon that. I think that the moral of that story is that Luma X20 is not intended to be a Control 4 only solution. The Control 4 experience will continue to be a richer experience, just because it's our hardware and our software. So we have the ability to maintain the API and create unique experiences more so than maybe other brands could. But those other brands, if they want to use our API and stretch their solution, they can. And we'll help them through that process. But unfortunately, it's going to be their expertise that really, allow them to stretch it as well. So from a Control 4 perspective, the goal, just like everything else, was to make the process much, much easier. So I'm going to bring up Composer here. I'm in a beta version of Composer with some beta components. So if you see anything you don't recognize, you are not allowed to ask questions. You are just to accept it for what it is, and realize that you may or may not have signed an NDA when you register for this webinar. I'm kidding about the NDA, but I am serious. You might see things you don't recognize. But most importantly is the new driver we have for X20 cameras and NVRs. Most importantly for the cameras. With our cameras with X20, we rebuilt the camera proxy behind the scenes, and we now support a feature called dynamic URLs. Dynamic URLs is essentially the automatic setup of your X20 cameras inside of Control 4. What I mean by that is all you need to worry about now is username and password, and where did you physically plug that camera in at. That's it. I think one of our big tech support calls already are dealers that have been trained in their brain. Part of that's because of us. We trained a lot of you guys to do it this way. So I'll take some of that ownership, because it was partly me as well. You were trained that when you're integrating into a control system, Control 4 is a great example, to go into the camera and manipulate the stream settings to match up with what the control system supports, right? I got to move, if it's an old system, drop it to MJPEG. If it's kind of new, but not new enough, I got to make sure I'm on H.264, not H.265. I need to make sure that the resolution doesn't exceed 720p or whatever it may be. I got to enable the third stream. That's no more with Luma X20. With Luma X20, dynamic URLs and the Control 4 driver allow you to go in and essentially just put in the login information. The driver will communicate with the camera. determine what streams are available. The Luma X20 cameras have 4 streams, and the 4th stream on the camera is only available for you, just you and the control system, is what we're probably going to pick. But the point is we're going to pick the stream that best supports the Control4 hardware currently in your project. So if you have a T3 that's accessing the system, we're going to pick that stream that supports that, right? Lower resolution. T4, you get high resolution. Core controller versus EA, same concept. We're going to pull in the highest resolution stream that your hardware can support. And it's going to be dynamic as that hardware changes. So you don't have to worry about going in and lowering stream settings to make it work on older systems or whatnot. You are ready to rock and roll just by putting in the username and password after you finish your overseas setup. Simple as that. So I have my example here. This is my 520 series camera plugged into the Luma NVR, the X20 NVR. So it's using the HTTP port that tunnels through the NVR to that camera. I have my System Connect username and password added in, and I'm done. As I go back and I pull up my X20, my Control4 app. Give me 1 second here. Let me unlock it and share again. I saw someone ask what I'm using to share. This is a tool called Reflector. So Reflector allows you to make your computer, your desktop, your Windows computer, a AirPlay endpoint. So I have the ability to AirPlay to my computer from my iPad, just in case you're wondering. Years of training. I love this app. So now in Control4, when you go to your security section and you go to your cameras section, you're going to get the highest resolution possible. You're also going to start getting live thumbnails in the Control4 app as well. Our default view in Control4 is this list view, the waterfall view. And so as you kind of slide around from your cameras, those views are going to update. I have a lot of beta cameras that aren't currently working, so ignore my some inconsistencies there. But as you slide through your cameras, they're going to update and they're going to go live as you slide through that experience. And they're going to be live throughout. As you go into your single camera view, you look at the full image there of the camera, you can still zoom and focus kind of across the board with that resolution. And you'll notice here, it's a little bit higher resolution than what you may have seen on the Luma View app just a little bit ago. That's just the Luma View app doing its job to maintain bandwidth and give you a smooth, faster paced versus, highest resolution. But one of the important things here in this section as well is here in the top right of the app, little icon here for menu. This is a new settings menu we have for our cameras. Right now, what you're going to see in the settings menu is the ability to manipulate the white light on your full color cameras. So the end customer can turn that white light on and off. You can program that white light to turn on and off in the background if you wanted to. If that camera has the microphone turned on, you can also turn that microphone on and off from the end customer's perspective if you turn it on to begin with. And so we're going to be bringing more settings like that into the Control4 app. The white light and audio are the first examples right now, but you can expect more of those down the road. So other than that, there's some other settings that we're going to have as we release things like new PTZ cameras into the ecosystem. You're going to see some new updated PTZ controls. We have some other things we're working on. I see a few requests that have come through on things people are looking for around, things like playback and, some more enhanced kind of playback in the Control4 app. What I can tell you is, just stay tuned on some of those types of things. Those are definitely some important things we want to look into. But yeah, that's kind of the round out discussion of X20. We crammed a bunch into this hour. My encouragement to all of you is if you liked what you saw, give it a shot. I think Gary and I talked about we're probably need to do another one of these things in a couple of months as a refresher, be a little more specific on certain parts. But this is just kind of step one. We're a month into this thing, getting launched in the field, and we are excited to see where we can continue to grow it. But the point here is that we are in a in a area now where we can be efficient and grow the ecosystem pretty frequently. So that's the value of where we're at with Luma. So we're a new platform that with the ability to grow and be efficient.
Yeah, totally agree. And manipulation of the white light and the microphones, that came up early, and we accomplished that. I heard that throughout our training questions already. Derek, what a great lightning round that was. Marlon, how you doing? How are your fingers, man? I know we put you in the hot seat as far as answering all these, 70 something questions for 2 hours worth of training, if you will, lightning round style. It was really, really useful, guys. And you know what? The whole time, Derek, I saw people registering for our live trainings, which was fantastic. I've got, a back end on Eventbrite. So I saw you guys, actually signing up, because we could take this a whole lot further in a 4-hour class at another 30 stops to go at our local stores. So please look out for that. I see a lot of good friends here on the West Coast too, Bruce and Carrie and Chad. Good to see you guys on here. Hopefully you got your questions answered. What I'm going to do, as I did the first sessions, I saved all those questions because I think that I'm going to put down an email with kind of a myriad of different FAQs, if you will, coming from these sessions. I think Derek, and just doing this live, 4 weeks, a month into the release of this, I think every single week, our audience and ourselves are going to continue to graduate forward with really how to fine tune this system. So that's why it's really important that not only our local stores are in tune with you and the development team, and kind of we're all going through this together. So no question is bad. Let me get a big email back out to you guys on what we covered today. Both sessions recorded, as well as the slide deck. Hey, Marlon, anything that stuck out with you with the customers' questions?
Yeah, so we see a lot of new product requests. That was a very great suggestion from our dealers. So which is like LPR. Someone mentioned panoramic cameras, and great ideas. So we just want to point out that we do have we are looking into certain things. So just stay tuned.
Derek, yeah, let's try to get back on this. I'm going to tour around the country with this for a few more weeks. I know that you're always there, and your development team is always here to, help us field the questions. I'm really relying on some of the Control 4 guys who are actually our trainers out in the field in some of these stops. As a reminder, tomorrow we'll be in Scottsdale. I think there's a pretty bad storm hitting Edina tomorrow, so I think that might be canceled. But make sure you go to the events section and check out all of the live updates that we've got, live trainings that we've got coming up, other products as well. We are live, the stores are happening. And you also got a glimpse on how Derek Webb shares his iPad, which was awesome. Forrest, what's going on? Good to have you on board too, my man. How you doing?
Good, Gary. Hey, thanks everybody. I mean, this is absolutely amazing. I see more than 100 participants in this training. So I just want to, kudos to the team, and thanks to all the partners, your time joining this training session. I mean, since we launched X20, there's a huge a lot of excitement that the people say, hey, finally, snap surveillance, guys are coming, to the right track, right? So a lot of the leverage of the new technology, we've been on board, you've seen this, oversee Luma View App, Control 4 tighter integration. So win your business back and help you to win more business in the field. We are constantly, increasing our, money spent on the integration pieces and the easy installation, like the online manual. And stay tuned, we're gonna have more products coming out. Not only this, later next quarter, we're gonna have more products, exciting extension of X20. It's still gonna be called X20 family, but you're gonna see more products coming out to help you more like commercial, like larger channel counts of NVR, things like that nature. So stay tuned with us. A lot of tools coming out and more products to help you win more projects.
Thanks, Forrest. Great update there. And I know you guys are working, tirelessly, especially after the release of all this. You have to do all this 3 years worth of work, and then we lead up to the point of launch, and then there's that much more work to do. But you know what? We're in partnership with our partners in a sense. This kind of intel is perfect. Marlon talked about guys asking about, certain other products that they can integrate with, and that's precisely where the local stores fit in nicely. There's a lot of products that we have. The product mix, for instance. So I want you firstly, to feel comfortable about our category, our surveillance category. And then secondly, you guys developing this in conjunction with Oversee, it's precisely what we wanted. It's not going to check all the boxes, but we're going to continue to add more boxes and create an ecosystem that's truly something you guys can dive into as you already have. So we really appreciate all that. Guys, I see a couple more questions. Somebody asked me if we're going to be putting this on the YouTube channel. I will be doing that, but I think on the email that I want to send tomorrow, it's going to just have the link of this raw discussion. It's the easiest way to get it to you guys quickly. Hey, Marlon, really quick, you see anything? I see 8 questions remaining. I know you're typing away. Is there anything we gotta get out there really quick?
I think everything we can cover, so I think we should be good.
Great. Derek, how about you? Last
Damien,
word.
that URL should be active for around the world. If it is not, please shoot me and Marlon an email as soon as possible. But that URL should be active around the world, and it is also linked on all of the product pages for X20 as well.
How about that Brian question where he said, I noticed when you were panning through the different cameras, the Luma app just was showing numbers.
Yeah, there's 2 different views where you can go through and you can see either numbers, or just you can even change it to the letters or to the name of the camera. And I showed that different view for him.
Got it.
And I see there was a question about X20 having IR now. Would that have white LED in the future? Yes, we are looking into that. With we will bring the full color camera to a higher resolution in the future.
Got it. All right, guys. 10:04 East Coast. Thank you guys so much. Check the events section. We are touring the country. Marlon, thank you so much for diligently typing those questions in there. Derek, what a great presentation. I'll get this out to everybody tomorrow. So give me a day to process all this stuff. Guys, thank you guys so much again. Visit us each and every week on the weekly webinar series, and make sure you get your more data out at the Snap One local stores. You know what? We are opening more stores. We've got 10 more this year, and I am in Cleveland right now. Tomorrow, Cleveland grand opening. Woohoo! Hello, Cleveland. There you go.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good one, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.